What's going on, y'all? It's JD Piquel. Today on the Hard Count, we're going to talk about, does Oklahoma need to be the Big 12's bid into the college football playoff? Welcome into CFP with JD, the place that has you covered year-round for the college football content that you want to see, whether it's a comment, whether it's a tweet, whether it's just liking the video and viewing the video. We want to do the content that you want to see, so let us know. I sit in the chair, Armstrong Sims and Jack McKenzie make it happen, and y'all drive the show, so we appreciate that. On that topic, we had one of you comment on one of our previous videos and say, hey, Is it have to be Oklahoma for the Big 12 to make it, or can it be Baylor? Can it be Oklahoma State? And that was Crone. So Crone, if you're watching this video because you've subscribed, thank you so much for adding to the conversation because now we're doing a video on it. But I think it's a very valid question, and there's a lot of pieces to it. So we're going to kind of go down the list here and look at Oklahoma, Baylor, and Oklahoma State and look at what their playoff hopes entail. So Oklahoma, number 8 in the CFP. A lot of people were upset about that. I'm not panicking just yet because they control their own destiny. They're undefeated. If they get into this thing and they're undefeated, they're not going to get left out of the playoffs. So that's the first and foremost thing I want to say. Oklahoma, if they finish the season undefeated, a Big 12 champ, they are in the dance. There's no denying that. Where it gets interesting is these one-loss teams, and if you were to assign a one-loss to a team like Oklahoma. So let's look at what they have the rest of the way. They go to Waco next week. They're off this week. To number 12 Baylor next week. They have Iowa State at home. Then they go to Oklahoma State for Bedlam and then likely finish the year with a Big 12 title game. So here's how this works out in my mind. If you're Oklahoma, you can have one loss. It can't be to Iowa State because Iowa State's unranked. That's a bad look. You're not Alabama. You're not going to get the SEC treatment. You have to finish the year probably undefeated. But I think with one loss, you can still sneak in if it's to a Baylor or to an Oklahoma State and you win the Big 12 championship. Reason for that being, if it's to a Baylor, if it's to an Oklahoma State, you'll probably have a chance to avenge that loss in a Big 12 title game. And we've seen the committee smile upon that. I know it's been musical chairs within the committee, but still, you avenge that one loss in the Big 12 title game, finish the year how you want to finish the year with a lot of momentum against probably a top 10 or a top 15 team. That's a big deal. So for Oklahoma, if you run the table the rest of the way, your resume looks like this. You're not only undefeated, you have 3 wins against top 15 teams to finish the year. Baylor, Oklahoma State, and then probably one of those two in the conference title. Where this gets really interesting is, okay, if it's a one-loss team and it's not Oklahoma, do they still get in? Let's take a look. Number 12, Baylor in the CFP. The rest of their slate looks like at TCU this weekend. They have Oklahoma at home. They go to K-State, Texas Tech at home, and then the Big 12 title game to finish the year. So they right now have a one loss working against them. It was in Stillwater to a top 20 at the time, Oklahoma State. Obviously, Oklahoma State has trended upward. Number 11 in the country right now, according to the CFP. That loss, I will assume, will look better and better as time wears on. So, resume looks like 2 top 20 wins. Number 14, Iowa State at the time. They're unranked now. Let's see how the committee ages that loss. Number 19, BYU, who they blew out of the water at home. Number 15 now. Again, we're going to see how these wins age. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the committee evaluates some of these wins because, like I said, Iowa State was number 14 in the country. At the time, that was a huge win that catapulted Baylor up the rankings, but now with them being unranked, will that be something that the committee frowns upon? Remains to be seen. Then they would finish the year with 2 top 10 wins. Oklahoma, and then whoever it is in the Big 12 title game. I would be remiss to say it's not going to be Oklahoma twice. We'll see what happens there. Bottom line, they've set themselves up for a run. The teeth of their schedule is behind them. They have Oklahoma to finish the year, and they should win virtually every other game. Oklahoma is the one game you really have circled outside of the Big 12 title game. Next, you got Oklahoma State, number 11 in the CFP, also one loss. The thing with Oklahoma State, which makes me feel a little bit uneasy about them, is that their one loss is to an unranked Iowa State. So if Iowa State was to be like a top 15 at the time they lost to them, let's talk about it, but their loss was to an unranked Iowa State. Similar to what I said about Oklahoma, you're not getting the Alabama SEC treatment. You're not getting the pass that Alabama's getting with A&M. It's unfortunate. Is it unfair? Probably, but this is the world we live in, and this is the college football playoff committee we're living in. So that hurts them. If they run the table, they would have 2 top 25 wins. They would have 2 top 10 wins, Oklahoma, and then maybe a Baylor. It could be Oklahoma twice. We'll see how that shakes out. So the resume is pretty solid, but that one loss just sits a little bit funny with me. But my thesis is I think all three of these teams, depending on where that loss is, if they were to lose to a ranked team, obviously, Oklahoma State being the sidebar, if they finish the year being a one-loss Big 12 champ, and if Baylor were to just have the loss to Oklahoma State being their one loss, and Oklahoma has a loss to either Baylor or Oklahoma State and they're a Big 12 champ, I think all three of these teams would get in. One of the reasons being because I think the Big 12 is just a really strong conference right now, and I think the committee is going to smile upon that. But I also think there's going to be some chaos that ensues throughout the Big 12, throughout the college football landscape. One of those being in the Big 10. Michigan State, undefeated right now, they're still going to have to play Ohio State and then Penn State in back-to-back weeks. That's a tall task. We'll see what happens there. But if Ohio State loses again, they're out. That should clear the picture a little bit. Cincinnati's a wild card. We'll see how the committee treats them going forward. Again, number 6 right now in the CFP. They're kind of a question mark right now. We don't know how they're going to trend if they do finish the year undefeated. I think they probably need some help. The ACC is a big talking point right now for one of those playoff spots because everybody in the studio agrees, myself, Jack McKenzie, Armstrong Sims, we all said if Wake Forest finishes the year undefeated, they're a Power 5 champion without a loss. You can't keep them out. Think about it this way. How we treated Clemson the last few years. Every single year, if they have a loss, they're out, but they finish undefeated. The branding, I think, probably has helped them a little bit, but beside the point, they've made the playoff every year, deservedly so. The same treatment should apply to Wake Forest. Take a look at their schedule, though. Wake Forest still has at North Carolina. Again, I know they haven't played as well this year, but they have a lot of talent. Sam Howell, still that dude, still should be a high pick in the NFL draft. They have number 19 NC State at Clemson. Clemson's still a really talented roster, especially in Death Valley. That could be a tricky game. Then they play at Boston College. Boston College, probably the weakest of the remaining schedule they have, but they're still going to be a team that I think gives you trouble. They still get up and give teams games. So I think the ACC will be in trouble with Wake Forest. I see them finishing with 2 losses, honestly. I love the hype about them right now. I love the story, but I think Wake Forest finishes with 2 losses. All that to be said, there's going to be room for the Big 12, regardless of if they have 1 loss or not, but I think 1 loss in general will allow them to be in the college football playoff. When it's all said and done, whether it's Baylor, whether it's Oklahoma State, or whether it's Oklahoma, one of those will have their ticket punched, 1 loss or not. That's it for us here at The Hard Count. Subscribe to CFP with JD. Comment topics you want to see, videos you want to see, just like this one. Again, shout out Chrome for making this video happen. We're going to keep the party rolling. We will see y'all next time.